Hey Russ,
Hey, Kathy, how are you?
good. Guess what I just did today?
You got a National Park Service pass.
Filling out my passport form.
Oh, good for you. Okay. Now, where do you have to go in person to do that?
At our local post office.
Okay, that's what I thought. You know, when you read online and in person, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to fly to Washington, D.C. or San Francisco. No, it's a post office.
Yeah, they have one here. In fact, there was a young family actually applying for theirs while I was there mailing other stuff today.
Did they give you any
So thank
idea
you.
how long? Well, good. How long it might take?
Um, 3 to 4 months.
Okay, that's better than I was hearing. I was hearing 4 to 8 months. So it looks like they're getting through their backlog.
I hope so. I don't plan on anything till next year anyway.
Okay. Yeah, that
Once
I
I
would
get
say if
into
if you
yeah,
don't have a passport, it would be good not to plan on anything until next year.
yeah, unfortunately.
You have a class on Tuesday evening. If so, what is it?
Someone asking me,
Yeah, you, Russ. Yes.
I don't have one next Tuesday evening because I'll be on vacation, but I do always have classes on Tuesday evenings. Yes, it's 7 o'clock.
What is what is the
The
title of the
next one, the next Tuesday,
what is the title of the class?
the next class I'm doing on Tuesday evening is going to be a class. Actually a group that just started meeting called single/solo travel interest group. And it's a group of people who have been coming to travel classes pretty regularly. And they would like to look at ways that maybe they could have a travel group that, groups of them could travel together. They have kind of starting to share ideas of the types of travel they'd like to do, where they'd like to go. Some of them are like, I'll go anywhere. And other ones, had more particular. Kathy wants to go. Well, Kathy probably may want to go lots of places. She didn't have a passport. That was the issue. That's why she's showing me her passport application. But there was someone in the group that said she couldn't fly very far because she couldn't sit real long. So an overseas flight was
Me.
out
That's
of the
me.
Jeannie. There you go. An overseas flight was off, not in the cards.
Either that or the first day I wherever we go, I can't move.
Well, if you could maybe take a ship.
True.
I have an ambition someday to go to Europe by ship because, well, that's how my ancestors got here, and I should try it. Number one, and number two, um, I have this theory that you wouldn't have jet lag because you'd take 6 days and you'd cross like six time zones and you'd just get one time zone a day. So by the time you arrive over there, you'd have no jet lag. Now, I also have another solution for jet lag that I've found is very effective. And the second day you're somewhere, go walk about 10 miles or 15. And the next night you'll fall asleep and you'll be outside all day. Your body, your circadian rhythm and your body clock will all reset. Just have enough coffee to keep moving. And then have a cold beer, a glass of wine in the afternoon or evening, and you're fine. I did that
What
when
do
I
you
went.
have for blood clots in the leg from all that up in the air sitting?
Well, you can't keep moving when you're in the air. That is possible. I always get up and move around if I can. And you know what
What?
else I do, Teresa? I
Right,
don't sit at the airport while I'm waiting.
right.
Um,
Well, I
I
did that too, and I walked up and down the aisles. They got sick of me when I was going to California. And believe me, I was in the bed for 2 days. Good thing I was there for a week. I was in the bed 2 days.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so don't worry, I'm going transatlantic. I'm going cruising transatlantic.
There you go.
Right.
You can just keep moving when you're on deck.
Oh yeah, and having fun.
Yeah, you can dance. Hi, Philip. Good to see you again. Philip's got.
Hey,
I would guess that's a Chicago skyline you have in the background there.
Yeah, I'm out at the pool.
So that's a real background.
That's a real back. That's our building next to us. Yes.
That's great.
There's the building I live in right there.
Whoa. Philip's from Chicago. Phil also teaches at Get Set Up. He's another guide. And he's going to do some more travel classes. I'm hoping Phil does one on well, here you go, Philip. This is the model. This is Shenandoah Valley. You just got to find 5 really good things, and they don't have to be the most popular, because when I took a poll of people, what would be the best things you'd show about the Shenandoah Valley? And I got all sorts of different answers. And some people were surprised by what I said. They said, well, that's pretty good. That's not what everyone always thinks of. So there's always hidden gems wherever you live, and I like those. Well, I'm glad to have everybody here this afternoon. I see lots of folks I know and some new people. I'm glad to have new people. This is a class on the Shenandoah Valley. This is ending off my week because I'm going on vacation tomorrow for a few days. I'm going to be at the Atlantic Beach in Maryland, going to Ocean Pines, and then going down to Assateague Island. And that's why I have my National Park Pass with me. We've talked about that pass is the best deal you can get being a senior in America right now, $80 lifetime pass. So my wife and I are going and taking a couple of grandkids, and the 4 of us can get into the park all week. The seashore, I should say. I guess it's not considered a park, National Seashore, Assateague Island National Seashore. So there's a lot of things you can do with that pass. If you haven't gotten one, get one. Hi, Kathy. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, we got ours for $20. That's before they turn it over to 80.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was a little too young then.
Yeah.
But something? I read a lot of complaints about, oh, now it's gone up to $80. Listen, $80 is a bargain as far as I'm concerned. $20 was a steal. So congratulations that you got it. So don't lose it. And I have to make sure I actually have mine on the packing list, so I'll make sure it goes with me. I'm glad to have everybody here this afternoon. I'm going to share my screen with you and take you on a little tour of the Shenandoah Valley, which is where I live. And this came as a request from some learners. They said, why don't you tell us about where the Shenandoah Valley is? And I said, sure, I will. And also what I'm hoping is I share about where I live, that different people will come forward and share something about where they live and can do something just like this. Actually, I'm talking to Philip about doing a class, and Chicago might be one of those. Philip and I both have an interest in Maine. I know it's on his list of places to do a class. So we're going to have to get our heads together, Philip, and see if there's 2 different parts of Maine we're going to. I think I'm going to what they call the mid-coast around Camden and such. So.
Yeah, we were just north of there.
Okay. Also next month in July, we got somebody doing one on Michigan. So all you people from Michigan, come out. We're going to do a class on Michigan. I got Judy Stelling from Get Set Up to be my travel pro about Michigan. I keep telling her, she says, we need to do a class in Michigan. I said, I'm a little bit nervous about doing Michigan because we have a lot of Michiganders in our classes. And if I don't say the right thing, they'll all know that I haven't been there much. So anyway, glad to have you here. Welcome to Shenandoah Valley. Where I live. I'm your guide, Russ Eanes from Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is right in the center of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm a writer, walker, and a cyclist. I used to be a book publisher, and I love to help authors shape their ideas into books. And I love the energy I get and wisdom I collect from working with older learners, which is why I'm now a full-time guide with Get Set Up. You all know that you can learn all sorts of wonderful things with Get Set Up, and we learn from each other in these classes. I love it if you have your camera on so we can see each other. You know that you can request a recording after the class of this class, so just email help@getsetup.io. And if anyone's joining by live stream, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class, and we are live streaming this one today. Lastly, Get Set Up's not paid to promote any specific products, but boy, I'm going to promote the Shenandoah Valley today. So this is the Shenandoah Valley right here in Virginia, this kind of dark orange right here. It is nestled between the Blue Ridge Mountains, which are on the east side of the valley, kind of running the length of Virginia up into, they kind of peter out when they get up into Maryland and Pennsylvania, and they call them other things. And on the west side are the Allegheny Mountains, and running up the middle of the valley is the Shenandoah River. That's why it's the Shenandoah Valley. The valley sort of continues on south, going down through the rest of Virginia, and actually the valley continues on north up into Pennsylvania. Sometimes that's called the Great Valley. It's huge, hundreds of miles long, but different rivers drain it. This is the Shenandoah Valley because it's the Shenandoah River, and it's a beautiful place between these two mountain ranges. And I am very lucky because I live in a house that's kind of nestled in the woods, and the city is behind me of Harrisonburg, and you wouldn't know it's there. And I look west to the mountains every morning. So I go sit out on my deck and have a cup of coffee and look at the mountains. It's a great place. Now, as I tell you about the Shenandoah Valley, let me mention, by the way, I've got the top 5 places and then a few places nearby that are really worthwhile seeing. I decided I wasn't necessarily going to rank them, so this isn't like the number one, but they are sort of ranked in order of the top sites of the valley. So some of them you may not have heard of. And by the way, Charlottesville's over here east of us about an hour. Richmond's about 2 hours away, but that's not in the Shenandoah Valley. That's in the other east side of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The number one attraction in the Shenandoah Valley is a place that a lot of people may not have heard of. It's called Stanton, not Staunton, Stanton. That's how the locals pronounce it. It's about 30 miles south of where I live. It's a nice sized town of 20, 30,000 people. Has a drop dead gorgeous downtown dripping with charm. And I was just there last weekend to get a few more pictures because some of my pictures weren't current. And I came across something fabulous in Stanton, which is that they've closed down the main street of Stanton on the weekends. It's called Beverly is the name of the street. And they put these bollards all the way across with chains so the cars can't go down. And they've opened up the street for dining. Stanton has lots of restaurants. And this started when people were coming into town and they had to do social distancing. Actually, they did something similar in Harrisonburg, where I lived, and they decided to keep it going this summer. I believe it's only for the weekends. The cars, ordinarily the road would be have lots of cars parked on it, so there's no cars there today. And we ate in one of those restaurants in the shade. It was perfect afternoon. But Stanton has lots of charm and some unique sites which you may not know about. For example, there's the American Shakespeare Center. The American Shakespeare Center is the only year-round repertory Shakespeare theater in North America. Now, what does repertory mean? It means that one troupe of actors, there's usually about 12, do anywhere from 3 to 4 plays in a season. And a season might be 3 months. And they typically do maybe 2, 3 Shakespeare and something that's not Shakespeare. So the same troupe just does that. And so there's only 12 of them. So they play all sorts of different roles in the plays. And if you like Shakespeare, and really, even if you don't understand what they're saying, you'll love it because you understand it when they're acting. They do this year round. They have 4 distinct seasons when they do plays. They were hit really hard last year because no one could go in the theater. In Shakespeare's time, 400 some years ago, a lot of people may have heard of the Globe Theater in London. The Globe didn't have a roof all the way over it, so it was open to the elements. And so Shakespeare's company also bought the old Blackfriars in London, and they did plays there in the winter. And so this playhouse is built to look like a recreation of the Blackfriars. The fact is they don't know what the Blackfriars look like exactly. They have sort of ideas. It's beautiful inside. And actually, I'm going to show you a real quick picture of what the American Shakespeare Center looks like on the inside because it is absolutely beautiful. Blackfriars Playhouse inside. You can see this guy right here. It's absolutely beautiful woodwork all the way around. And when you're sitting in the theater, you sit and look basically the audience surrounds the actors on three sides, and they're very close to you. So they're always, they're always near you, and you feel like you're in the middle of it. And so this is what it looks like from the stage. You can see the balcony all the way around. They have lighting. It's lit the whole time. There's no spotlights on the stage. So the audience can see each other. The actors can see the audience. All audience can see the actors. And so you sort of interact with them. It is a fabulous place. They do plays year round at the American Shakespeare Center. And you can even get a special for a weekend. You can come down on a Thursday. Well, right now they're doing some plays outdoors. They haven't moved back indoors yet, but when they move back indoors and they're doing up to 4 plays at a time, you can come down on a weekend and stay in the hotel next door, and you can see a play Thursday night, Friday night, and 2 Saturday. And so you can see everything they do. It's really fabulous. There are 2 other year-round Shakespeare theaters in America, one in San Diego, one in Stratford, Ontario, but they don't do repertory. In other words, there's a troupe, one troupe just does one Shakespeare play. So this repertory is how they did plays in Shakespeare's time. This is another view of the theater. Really beautiful place. Next to it is the Hotel 24. Used to be called the Stonewall Jackson. Thankfully, they changed the name of that. And you can get special deals to stay at the Hotel 24 and see the plays. And of course, there are lots and lots of restaurants in town to enjoy. Plus, there's shopping, dining, art, antiques, and charm. I mean, Stanton is really quite sizable. Lots of art galleries, antique shops, used bookstores, musical instruments, but everything you can imagine. And they've preserved the charm of their downtown, which is like 130 years old. And I just like to go down there and walk around town. I'm not showing you a picture this time, but there is Mary Baldwin College, a women's college, also in town up in the hill, and it's a beautiful campus. So Stanton is a great place if you're coming to the Shenandoah Valley to spend a weekend. The number 2 attraction in the Shenandoah Valley is Skyline Drive. It's inside the Shenandoah National Park. The Skyline Drive goes all the way along the top of the Blue Ridge for 105 miles. So it starts up in Front Royal, Virginia, and that's if any of you have driven from Washington, D.C. out this way to Winchester, Virginia, Front Royal is right where you pass over the Shenandoah River, and that's right around where the Shenandoah River splits into 2 rivers. One river goes this side, and one river goes this side of this ridge called the Massanutten Ridge, which goes about down the middle of the Shenandoah Valley. But the Skyline Drive starts in Front Royal, goes all the way south to Rockfish Gap. And at Rockfish Gap, you can actually then get on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which will go for another 400 miles all the way down into North Carolina. So the drive sort of continues. But Skyline Drive is special for many reasons. One is that the Appalachian Trail parallels it the entire way. And so you can either, and there are many, many smaller hiking trails. I mean, more than I can count. So you can, and there's campgrounds, and there's 2 great places that have lodges. One is called Big Meadows. The other one is called Skyland. So there's hundreds of miles of hiking trails. There's me with my wife on a waterfall. You can go up or down to these places. You can cut over and walk part of the Appalachian Trail if you want. At the Hawksbill Summit, that's the highest point that you can hike to on the Skyline Drive. And the one fabulous thing about the Blue Ridge and these mountains here is they kind of flatten out, and you can see from the top of Hawksbill all directions. You can see east toward Richmond, you can see west, you can see north. And that's to get to Hawksbill is just like a mile hike off of the Skyline Drive. So there's all this fabulous hiking, and there are campgrounds. Big Meadows Lodge and Skyland Lodge were built in the 1930s. The Skyline Drive was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Depression. They needed to put people to work. So they built this fabulous drive, and they built these fabulous lodges at the very top of so you could look out way west or east from the mountains down into the valleys. And they're great places to just hang out for a weekend. You can get a room. They have restaurants there. You can go hiking from the lodge. The lodges also have some cabins nearby. I see Teresa nodding her head. I'll bet she's been down here because she's from Alexandria, right?
I go twice a year, and that is my next vacation. I can't wait. Oh, it's beautiful. And I've stayed in the lodges, and they have horseback riding. And don't forget to send a link to the webcam by the national park where you could actually see it each day.
Okay. Thank you. There's a commercial. There's a convinced customer because I love it up there myself. I haven't actually stayed in the lodge yet, but I have an ambition to spend a long weekend up there.
Yeah, they renovated them, so they're very nice.
They are very nice. And the restaurants are good. I have eaten in the restaurants. The Big Meadows Lodge has like a visitor center that shows you all about how they built the Skyline Drive.
And they have live music at night and everything too at the lodge, you know, and all the meals. It's just beautiful. It's worth every penny, and it's not expensive.
It's not expensive. And you know, the nice thing about driving Skyline Drive is that if I got a picture of the driving in here, no, I don't. When you're driving it, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, so you can even bike it. So there are places to pull out about every, mile and a half. They have viewpoints. You just pull over and you can look either way. You can look east sometimes, you can look west sometimes. It's just fabulous driving. Okay, that's number 2. And I could go on about the Skyline Drive for a long time because I love it so much. I'm glad Teresa's here to nod in agreement.
Well, I'm glad you're giving Massanutten, but don't forget the water park.
I won't. There's Massanutten Ski Resort. So down the middle of the Shenandoah Valley, about halfway down, kind of ending where I am in Harrisonburg, is this ridge called Massanutten. It's actually several ridges that kind of connect to each other. They looked a bit like one long ridge when you see them from the sides. If you look down them in the air, they're like these sort of connecting ridges. And at the very end, again, what looks like a solid ridge is actually this bowl. And that's Massanutten. And there's a ski resort up there. And you can see this is in summer, of course. This is the ski runs down here. And there's a golf course out there. I don't play golf, but if you do, must be a fabulous course. And in the summer, you can mountain bike. You can take a ski lift up and you can mountain bike down. However, if you like to bike, on the slopes on either side are fabulous mountain biking trails. And we have a local biking club that maintains those trails and is always building new ones. So Harrisonburg, where I live, is actually known as the mountain biking capital of Virginia, largely because of Massanutten Ski Resort. And of course, you can see this is it in the winter. But Teresa is right, because the water park is open year round. You can even go in the water park in the winter. You can rent houses, vacation houses for a week up here. It's a very popular place for people to go year round. There are also people that live in the communities, the sort of in the woods, the vacation houses year round, because they're not that far from Harrisonburg and other places, or even from Charlottesville. But I think that between this and Greenbrier, I'm drawing the blank on it. There's another ski resort south of here. This is probably one of the best known ski resorts for people that live in the sort of DC area, because they can get here within 2 hours, or Richmond, probably about the only place they can go. There's one more south of here that people go to as well, but this is very popular. A lot of people from where I live, including a couple of my sons, have had they get a ski pass for the season and they go here. So Massanutten, number 3. Again, you can go there year round. Number 4 is a relatively new site. And Teresa, if you haven't been here, you need to get to this place. This is the Blue Ridge Tunnel.
I've been there.
Oh, great. Did you hike all the way through?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't hike. I drive.
Oh, well, you didn't drive through the Blue Ridge Tunnel then.
Well, then it's not the tunnel that I was thinking of, where you drive through when you're going through those little towns.
I know what you mean. No, the Blue Ridge Tunnel is an interesting place. It's only been open about 6 months. And there's a wonderful hiking trail through the woods. This was last December, that goes down to the tunnel. And so this is the western portal of the tunnel. And by the way, you can see the other end of the tunnel, that little bit of light there. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. This is the eastern end with my wife. The eastern end is cut completely out of rock, so they didn't need to face it. But the western end here is faced with stone because it was a different type of stone, crumbled a little bit more easily. But when it was built, the Blue Ridge Tunnel was it was built and it finished in 1858. It was the longest railroad tunnel or tunnel of any kind actually in the world. Now, 4,100 feet or something. Before too long, other tunnels exceeded it, and there are many longer tunnels today, but it was the longest tunnel in the world. And it was used up until about the Second World War, when it became too small for some of the new steam engines. They couldn't, and cars couldn't get through the tunnel. They were too big. So they built another tunnel for it. It actually runs parallel to it. It's right next to it. And they closed the Blue Ridge Tunnel down. Now, let me tell you where the Blue Ridge Tunnel is. And I'm going to flip back here to my map of Skyline Drive. So this is the northern end of Skyline Drive. You can see Virginia right here. This is Skyline Drive. Right down here at the bottom end, Rockfish Gap. And there's a town of Waynesboro on the west side. And there's a little town of Afton on the east side. The Blue Ridge Tunnel cuts right underneath this. So it's 700 feet below Rockfish Gap, which is where the Skyline Drive ends. So if you are driving the Skyline Drive and you come from the north end and get to the south end, you can quickly exit and go right down like about 2 miles maximum to the town of Afton, where you can pick up the Blue Ridge Tunnel on the east side. Or you can exit and go about 2 miles or maybe 3 miles the other direction toward Waynesboro. I don't even think it's 3 miles, it might be a mile. And you can come to the western portal of the tunnel. So, and it goes 700 feet below Rockfish Gap, which is, of course, the lowest part of the Skyline Drive. It's a fabulous hike. From between the two parking lots, if you walk it, is about a little over 2 miles. So if you walk all the way through and back, it's a nice 4-mile hike. There are no lights inside, but it is a fabulous experience. And after they closed it down, they didn't know when they built the new tunnel, they didn't know what to do with it. So someone had this brilliant idea that they would make it into a storage place for natural gas. So they sealed both ends with like 12 feet of concrete, and it didn't work. It leaked. And so they gave up on trying to keep natural gas in there, or propane, maybe it might have been. So it just sat unused. And then about 20 years ago, almost, the towns on each and the counties on each side of the Blue Ridge decided they wanted to reopen this and make it a walking trail. And it is fabulous. I would say if you're coming to the Shenandoah Valley and if you can drive the length of Skyline Drive, at the end, come down to a Blue Ridge Tunnel and have a walk through it. It's just a great experience.
And that other resort is Bryce Resort.
Bryce Resort, okay. Okay, the fifth big amenity in the Shenandoah Valley, and this is one you probably would not imagine, is something called the Wine and Spirits Trail. I didn't know this till I was researching this recently. I knew there were quite a few brew pubs and wineries around where I live. I didn't know that between Harrisonburg and Winchester, which is just about 60 to 65 miles, there are 52 breweries, wineries, distilleries, and cideries. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that people drive the whole trail with lots of stops at each one in between on a long trip, because you won't want to do that. But there are so many places, and you can get a map, and I'll send you a link to the Wine and Spirits Trail so you can see where they are. Now, a lot of folks know that up on the north end around Front Royal, or on the east side, what they call Piedmont area of Virginia, there's lots of wineries, and that's true. This isn't counting those wineries. This isn't counting the wineries over near Charlottesville. This is just inside the Shenandoah Valley between Harrisonburg and Winchester. That's just about 60 miles. There are all these places, and they keep on opening more. So there's a whole lot of small towns that you can drive that are parallel to Interstate 81. Interstate 81 is what is the highway that goes the length of the Shenandoah Valley. And they're little towns on Route 11, the old U.S. route before they built the interstate. Route 11 goes through all those towns, and they're quite charming. Actually, Stanton is one of the southernmost towns on Route 11. Personally, I get off Interstate 81 and I drive Route 11. It takes me a little bit longer, but it's much more relaxing and very beautiful. Actually, south of Stanton is also the town of Lexington, which has a lot of charm to it. But I only had to give you the top 5. So
is that the same trail that goes through Woodbridge? When I used to live in Woodbridge, I would go that Civil War trail and then come on up all those little towns, and they would have wineries through there.
Yes, like Woodstock, Edinburgh, Tomsbrook, Newmarket. Yes, one after another. And there is an old railroad line there that is no longer in use, is being abandoned. And there's now the plan to turn that railroad line that goes all the way from Timberville, about 12 miles north of Harrisonburg, to Winchester. There's talk of making that into a rails to trail. So that would be a fabulous thing. And I hope it happens because I'm a cyclist. Now, if those top 5 don't attract you, I should tell you that there's lots of road and mountain biking in the Shenandoah Valley. Again, it's the mountain biking capital, but also I think it's the road biking capital. Here we're on top of Reddish Knob. It's about 4,000 feet. It's a local thing for us to do once a year to climb Reddish Knob. It's about 12 miles to the top, 2,500 foot climb. A lot of fun. You can see out over the mountains in every direction, but the mountain biking is also fabulous around here. And we have a very active cycling club. You can also kayak the South River. This is my wife on a kayak on the South River. It's not very deep. Maybe it's a foot deep. You have to worry about drowning. This was actually us last December. We went on the South River on a warm day through the city of Waynesboro on kayaks. And there are various stretches of the South River, which is one of the branches of the Shenandoah River. So it flows north from Waynesboro, Harrisonburg, where I live, all the way up to the Potomac River, which is technically where I think the Shenandoah Valley probably begins. But there are all sorts of places where you can put in kayak, canoe. It's a paradise. In addition to that, if you want to hop over the mountain about an hour to Charlottesville, you can go to Monticello. That is one of the most beautiful places to see, and a lot of folks like to go over there. But a place that I like to go that's just a little bit, maybe it's not even 2 hours from where I live. So if you're starting in the Shenandoah Valley from the north, you can get there very easily, is Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry is where the Shenandoah River comes into the Potomac River. So I'm looking at Harper's Ferry from above the town. I'm actually in Maryland. There's a big bluff called what's called Maryland Heights. And this is below down here at the bottom of the screen is the Potomac River coming from the west, from Cumberland. And coming from the south up here is the Shenandoah River. And where they meet is Harper's Ferry. And Harper's Ferry is dripping with charm itself. It's dripping with beauty because there's all these hiking. You can climb up into the bluffs above the rivers on several sides, or you can just climb all the way up above Harper's Ferry up here, and you get a fabulous view down the Potomac Valley. Very historic, Harper's Ferry. The whole town has been turned into a museum. This is another view of Harper's Ferry this is called Maryland Heights. A lot of people hike there. It's about an hour and a half hike uphill, but you can stop and take breaks. It's really worth every minute of the hike up there. You can see the old abandoned railroad bridges across there. In fact, this is in the middle of the river is one of the old piers to a bridge. And this might be the bridge that was there in John Brown's time. In 1859 when he led a raid. And of course, that's what makes Harper's Ferry historic. John Brown led a raid in 1859, captured the Federal Armory, that's where they made muskets, and arsenal, where they stored their weapons, and tried to lead a slave uprising. Did not work. He was captured, and then a few months later, he was hung, he was executed. And many people feel that is what touched off the Civil War, probably did. But they've turned the whole town into a park. and it is a national park. So if you have your national park pass, you can get in there for free. There's a parking lot and visitor center about 1.5 miles to 2 miles away from the center of town. So you drive out, see there's a bridge in the distance. You drive out there, you park your car, a shuttle bus takes you into the town. So there's really not very much traffic in town. And then they've renovated the old buildings like this, so they look like they did at the time of the Civil War. This, by the way, is not Spoleto from the Roca. You like that little thing I have right there? That is not Spoleto from the Roca. That is Harper's Ferry. And this back here is Maryland Heights. And they've turned all these old buildings, several of them are museums, and they're very interesting. It's everything about John Brown's raid, but it's also, there's a lot of Black history there, actually, because after the Civil War, there was a school opened there called Storer College. I'm going to give you one more view of Harper's Ferry, by the way. This is looking up the Potomac River toward the west from Maryland Heights. And again, there's the Potomac River off that way. Storer College was a college, I think a Baptist college, started after the Civil War for educating the freedmen. And it was in existence for about 85 years. Harper's Ferry is in West Virginia, so it started out being in Virginia. Then during the Civil War, West Virginia seceded from Virginia, and so it became in West Virginia. Eventually, the state of Virginia stopped its funding because they wanted to give funding for state institutions. But it was a place where the freedmen could get, the ex-slaves, the former slaves could get educated. And it also was a place where it was a second meeting of the Niagara movement. So W.E.B. Du Bois and others who eventually founded the NAACP met in Niagara Falls, New York. And then the next year they met at Storer College. So there's a whole lot about that movement, they call it the Niagara movement for civil rights and for justice. So there's a lot of that in the museums in town. It's a fabulous place. I love it. A lot of that wasn't open last year because of the pandemic, but I believe it's all reopened this year. So Harper's Ferry is a place that's worth spending a couple nights. And something I didn't show you because it's kind of hard to see, I think, in any of these photos. But down below here, still on the side of the river that I'm looking at here, is the C&O towpath, which is a bike or walking trail that runs the entire length of the Potomac River from Cumberland to Washington, D.C. It's 180 miles. I actually biked it last year. It's the towpath of the former canal. And so where Teresa is in Alexandria, you can just cross over the Potomac and into Georgetown, and you can hop on and start walking the C&O if you want to. Great Falls is, 5-7 miles upriver, something like that. It's a famous place a lot of people go to. But they dug this canal along the Potomac River as an early form of commercial transportation. The unfortunate thing about the C&O, the Chesapeake and Ohio, or C&O Canal, is that it was a commercial failure for several reasons, one of which was that it took them so long to build it, but that by the time they got the canal dug from Georgetown or Washington, D.C. to Cumberland, the railroad had already been there and gone up over the mountains to Pittsburgh. So it was basically obsolete. They started it before railroads existed. But they still used it for another 70, 80, 90 years. But because the Potomac River is a wild river that drains the Allegheny Mountains, it floods a lot. And every time it would flood severely, it would wash over and wash away part of the canal. So they finally gave up on the canal about 100 years ago. Fortunately, when it was abandoned, I believe the B&O Railroad bought it. And when they abandoned it, the federal government bought it and made it into a U.S. park. So actually, the C&O towpath and canal is a park, very long, narrow park that runs the entire length of the Potomac from Cumberland, Maryland to Washington, D.C. It's beautiful. I biked it last year. It's a fabulous bike ride. It's flat. In other words, the only time you ever go up or down is when you hit one of the locks in the canals every couple of miles, and you just drop down or climb up 8 feet. Otherwise, it's completely flat in between because it was a canal. And if some of you have been to my class, I do on that bike adventure from Pittsburgh to Washington, I talk a lot more about the canal. But anyway, Harper's Ferry is a real jewel along that place. And I really, really recommend stopping and spending a couple days in Harper's Ferry if you can manage it. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask, is there anybody here who's been to the Shenandoah Valley besides Teresa? I know she's been there. Melissa. Anybody got a favorite place they've been to? Melissa, do you have a favorite place in the Shenandoah Valley? Okay. Well, I really encourage, Kathy.
We like the Harper's Ferry a lot. We've been there quite a few times. It's really pretty.
It is. And I've been coming, and you know what? It's beautiful year round, but especially spring, summer, and fall. Fall, they have fabulous colors. And when you can get up on the heights, you can see so far everywhere. And there's beautiful fall colors. I've been going there for over 40 years. When I first lived in the Washington, D.C. area, about 1979, I started going out there to hike. And we go there several times a year. And it's really worth, they have bed and breakfasts and hotels and Airbnbs, and there's lots of places to stay. In fact, sometimes it can even be kind of hard to find a place to stay on some weekends in Harper's Ferry, but it's really worth it. There's the cycling, there's the touring, there's the museum. Well, I call the town a museum, and of course, there's the cycling. Oh,
and don't forget about the Harrisonburg, where George Madison's the conference center and the hotel is beautiful. Remember that opened up some years ago?
It did just open up. So Harrisonburg, where I am, and I didn't put it on one of the top places because I find Harrisonburg a lovely town. It doesn't quite have the charm of Stanton. We do have James Madison University, or JMU, we call it. Nice, a very well thought of state university in Virginia, and has about 20,000 students. And Teresa's right. We just opened up the Madison Hotel and Conference Center.
Nice.
And it is beautiful. You are exactly right.
Yes.
And the campus is beautiful. And it's right next to downtown Harrisonburg. And the whole town is quite walkable and bikeable.
It is. And I love the what you call it, where they park your car, so I don't have to worry about nothing. I just drive up, they take it, and when I want to go out, they come and bring my car. I love it. Valet service.
A valet service, yes. And we have lots of good restaurants, and we have our own. We have four or five breweries and cideries in Harrisonburg as well. Harrisonburg is a bit different because our downtown, we have a tiny bit of the Stanton charm, but most of it had a more industrial, gritty edge. What's interesting is all the old industrial buildings, everything from, tire shops to ice houses to whatever, have all been transformed, and they've been made into restaurants and co-working places and brew pubs. So actually, Harrisonburg has really come a long way. I love living here.
And don't forget about the Wintergreen Resort too.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Wintergreen, with all those activities they have on the weekend that you could buy activity pass.
That's what I was trying to remember, Teresa. So Massanutten is in the Shenandoah Valley. If you just cross over that Rockfish Gap, just where Skyline Drive and the Blue Ridge Parkway meet, she's right. That's Wintergreen, which is a big resort also on the top of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
We used to go there when I lived in Richmond. That's where we used to go skiing.
That's where you go skiing. That's right. Pam Penny, you got a question or a comment?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, actually, our thing would be hiking. So like Harper's Ferry, and we love little quaint towns. Would that be worth, we could hike for a week if we wanted, but is there enough there? Like, could you stay there for that long and just find enough hikes so it's not the same trail every time? Or
you sure could find the hikes, because for one thing, Harper's Ferry is the national headquarters of the Appalachian Trail. So you could hop on the Appalachian Trail each way one day, and then you could hike. So where I was showing you pictures of some Maryland Heights, you can hike up there, and you can hike beyond that, by the way. But on the other side of the river, so Harper's, well, I'll show you the picture just so you kind of understand. It's kind of fun to look at. Harper's Ferry is where 3 states meet. So when you're looking at Harper's Ferry from above, as I was showing you right here, where I'm standing from this photo, this is Maryland Heights, a great height. In the point here, this is West Virginia, and on the other side of the mountain is Loudoun County, Virginia. And there's a similar bluff on this side, and there are hiking trails up there as well. So between the town, the trails, and by the way, you could just walk the C&O towpath either direction for hours, and it's beautiful along the river. The river is beautiful there. And I should mention about 12 miles west of Harper's Ferry is the town of Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And that is a very charming town. It's got a small state university, lots of arts, good restaurants. That's a beautiful place to go to as well. You can easily get there from Harper's Ferry. Yes, Shepherdstown. Let me make note of that. I certainly will.
And so are there trailheads? You can find the trailheads to if you wanted to drive to a different site, they have places like that to park?
They would.
Okay.
And also I should mention, because Harper's Ferry, so that's down the Potomac River, if you head north up through Maryland, I mean, we're just talking a few miles, there are several small mountains there that have hiking trails.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got maps from hiking for that place for years. So yeah, I think you would be tough to exhaust it in a week.
One last question then, what's the bear population like?
I haven't heard of any.
Oh, okay.
Now, my sister-in-law lives in Asheville, and she's been sending us photos every week of the bears in her backyard in the city of Asheville.
Okay.
But that's Asheville.
Well, we have in Michigan quite a bit, so I thought you guys would too.
We're okay right now. Now, don't quote me in case you run into a bear. Say, hey, wait, guy. Russ told me you weren't around here.
In case, yeah, okay.
Any more comments or questions?
Russ, I have a question. When was Stanton founded?
Stanton was founded, I think, back, I want to say something like 1780, 1790. It's an old town. Harrisonburg was actually founded about then too, but Stanton, early on, Stanton was bigger. Stanton, because of its location, is more of a centralized point between the north and south routes of the valley and the east-west routes going into West Virginia. So if you go south of Stanton toward Lexington, which is about another 30 miles, and head west, that's Interstate 64. That leads to Greenbrier, West Virginia, which is a very popular resort. And that was always a way that people traveled very early on when they went over the Allegheny Mountains, like into Kentucky.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Stanton, you didn't see it in the photos. I may have to go down there for another trip to take pictures, but it has Mary Baldwin College, which is a beautiful campus, all with yellow brick. And also there's a Virginia school, I think, for the blind there, maybe deaf and blind, which is also in town. And it has more kind of Victorian aged houses than I've seen in any town anywhere in the valley. And it's beautiful. You could spend a day just walking around Stanton. My wife and I've done it. Kathy, remind me, are you from Ohio or Michigan?
Ohio.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody here from Michigan?
Yeah,
Pam, Kathy and Pam and Jeannie. Where are you from in Michigan, Pam?
Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids. And Kathy?
Grand Blanc.
Oh, Grand Blanc. That's right. I think I once mispronounced it, called it Grand Blanc. See, I'm trying to be French. Jeannie, where are you from?
Grosse Pointe Woods.
Well, next month we're going to do a class like this on Michigan. And so I understand that the big thing in Michigan is lakes. The places I've been to in Michigan, years ago, I was in Detroit. And when I was in high school in the Chicago area, we used to go around the lake to Warren Dunes State Park. We loved that. And then I used to live in Elkhart, Indiana, so I would go to Sturgis. I've been to, let's see, what's Hope College up on the lake? Holland. I've been there. That's my extent of Michigan. So I'm really under experienced in Michigan. So I'm looking forward to all of you folks from Michigan to come out and cheer on that class. And if anybody wants to give input to me, you've got my email address. I'll put it in the notes at the end. You can say, Russ, you need to talk about this with Michigan, because we have lots of folks in Get Set Up from Michigan. So you're the experts. Tell me. And if anybody in this class is interested in talking some similarly about where you live or a place nearby you, reach out and let me know. I'd love to do some other classes. We had Daniela Nachava talked about Bulgaria the other night. If anybody missed that class, make sure you come back to the class that should be done. If not next week, I forget, it's a week afterward. Let me check my calendar here. Destination Bulgaria. That was fascinating. In fact, I think after the class, there were a lot of people looking for the price of flights to Bulgaria, which, by the way, are dirt cheap right now if you want to go to Bulgaria, in case anyone's interested in it. I'm interested in it. Looks like we're going to do Bulgaria in 2 weeks. So we've done them in all sorts of places, and we're always adding to our list of places that we can give destinations to. I'm especially trying to do places in the US because not everybody can or wants to travel overseas. And of course, still not necessarily the best place to travel overseas if you want to go there. But traveling in the US is much cheaper. I'm hoping to do a class on Pittsburgh and Richmond, two of my favorite cities in the East, where you may not know there's all sorts of gems. Any more comments or questions? Well, I really enjoyed having you all this week, today. I've had a lot of you classes this week. Glad to share with you about the Shenandoah Valley. It's a great place where I live. I love it. And there's a bunch of comments here in the chat. Let's see. Thanks for putting comments in the chat. I forgot to check these out. Okay, someone said, where is Shenandoah Valley in the map? So you know what? I should have shown you that. I'm going to pull up here Google Maps, and you can see real quickly on a different map where the Shenandoah Valley is. So I'll show you that. You know, you go into your Gmail and you click on the Maps app, and there it is. And this is the Shenandoah Valley right here where I live. There's always pulls up where I am, and that's the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. Here's Washington, D.C. out here to the northeast. Interstate 66 is how people typically get over here, and then they go down Interstate 81, sometimes also known as Parking Lot 81. There is unfortunately an accident a day in Virginia on Interstate 81. So if you're coming here, make sure you check your traffic app. But this is the Shenandoah Valley and Harper's Ferry, and there's Winchester. So Winchester down to Lexington is kind of considered the valley. Here's Harrisonburg and Stanton in the middle. And Harper's Ferry is just a little bit farther north up here in West Virginia. Right there is Harper's Ferry. So that's a great place to go. So if you're interested, this is the Shenandoah Valley. This is the Blue Ridge right here. And this, of course, is where the Skyline Drive is. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. I'm going to say goodbye to you because I won't be back till next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we have Linda Harris, who's going to talk about the Harriet Tubman Trail. And she's the first one to walk that with a group. And she's going to talk about that. And also the Selma to Montgomery Trail or walk, the Civil Rights Walk. She's a great person. She's also opening the Harriet Tubman Center down there in the Eastern Shore near Cambridge, Maryland. Fabulous person. We should enjoy that. Wednesday noon, I'll be interviewing Linda. Then Thursday noon, we have Sandy Brown from Washington State, who's also a guidebook writer and walker himself through Europe. He's done the Camino de Santiago, the Camino, the Way of St. Francis in Italy, and he's getting ready to go to Europe to walk the Via di Francigena. But this year, when he couldn't go anywhere out of the U.S., he walked the California Missions Trail, 800 miles. So come and hear about Nikki, somebody from California. So thanks, everyone. I hope to see you next week in classes. Have a great weekend.
Have fun.
Bye.
Have fun at the beach.
Thanks, bye.